Hey everybody, I'm Clint Hoekstra and I'm here with Gabrielle Battiste.
Yes.
And she's running for City Council in the upcoming Edmonton election in the O'Day-Min ward. So we're going to discuss some important issues. So how are you today?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
Cool. So I think that probably the biggest issue in the downtown ward at any given time is homelessness. And what do you think as a city council person you could do to alleviate those issues for our city?
Well, as you know, it's a complicated matter. It's not just a one-size-fits-all solution. So right now, we have thrown a lot of money at creating shelter warehousing space. And unfortunately, that's just not a solution. It's not a long-term solution. And it's often extremely unsafe for people who use it. It's just a catch and release program. And so what we need to do is we really need to focus our resources on things that work. And one of those things that works is a place called Ambrose Place. I don't know if you've heard of it. Ambrose Place is run by Niganan Developments. Corolla Cunningham oversees it. And it's an Indigenous development company. It's Indigenous run and it's based on culture. And that is a key component for success, I believe, and I've heard and I've read about in any rehousing program, especially with wraparound services. You need to connect people to their roots and provide them with a community of support so that they know as they're being treated with cognitive behavioral therapy and palliative care if they require it, and weaning off alcohol and drugs, you know that when you are rehomed, you're going to still have that support network available to you. Because just providing somebody a house isn't giving them a home. There are a number of people who are really resistant to just going straight into housing. So that's one way that we can focus on having smaller, culturally run, appropriate, all-inclusive wraparound services, because Niganan then provides housing afterwards for people to transition into. So that's an amazing program, and I would love to see much more of those kinds of partnerships to empower those kinds of culturally community-led organizations, because they know what they need best to exist all across Edmonton, and not just right in the downtown core, where if you have every single social service centralized like that, you're creating this kind of well of poverty and despair where it kind of feeds on itself, where people don't see hope and they don't experience hope. And one of the ways to do that is by having community buy-in to create that community of care and mentorship program that really should exist for all walks of people and all kinds of housing, including supportive housing. And so if you have smaller wraparound services, communities know going in that there won't be issues as they perceive them, at least not as great, because they do have care and supports there. And also that it's a smaller organization, and so those are more manageable. And then that buy-in and integration can more effectively take place. So that's one part of the solution. But that's a really good start to redirect resources towards that kind of culturally led solution. And it's not just Indigenous. Black communities need to have culturally led solutions as well. And it really runs across the gamut.
Cool. You yourself have a law practice, I believe?
Yes.
And you're experienced in a variety of fields regarding government interactions with the legal system, I guess. And I guess you've also worked as a consultant for city councils.
Yes.
How do you feel that experience and your legal practice in general will work towards your assets as a city councilor?
Okay. That's a good question. So I feel like, and I know that I've been training for this position my whole life. So although I've been a lawyer for 25 years, I've worked in a number of different areas. So I've worked in environment with the province, helping during the Fort Mac fires, running, as part of the oversight on air quality monitoring, chief risk officer, general counsel. I have worked in the energy sector as well, so I understand where private sector is coming from there and some of the transitions that we need to make to move towards alternate sources of energy. I have run banking across Canada from an oversight governance perspective as Chief Compliance Officer, Chief Ombudsman, meaning resolving disputes, Chief Privacy Officer, General Counsel, all of those kinds of things. So I really have a great understanding of billion-dollar financial investments and oversight, which is what we're dealing with here. I mean, this is a multi-billion-dollar organization. It's not something you can just jump into and expect to understand right away. I have run the police commission, so I have a great idea of how policing here specifically needs to change and what its strengths are. I've been a relentless community volunteer, so I am the president of Autism Edmonton. I understand vulnerable sector very well. My son, who's 27, is autistic. He's a cancer survivor. He's got type 1 diabetes, so I understand the need for inclusiveness. Personally, I have PTSD, a hidden mental health issue. And all of those kinds of issues need to be front and foremost if we're going to build an inclusive and accessible city that everyone can enjoy playing in, working in, and living in. And also, I've already started to make some of the changes that have been recommended in anti-racism reports, among other things. I've already incorporated, along with a number of other people across Canada, the Coalition for Canadian Police Reform, to look at systemic policing changes and independent third-party oversight. I've already created an organization run by sex workers for sex workers called Answers. And we've just recently received a fantastic grant to allow us to empower women within that community. So those are just some of the things that give me that lived experience background. I was a janitor for 2 years. I've used a women's shelter. I've lived in areas which people would perceive as extremely unsafe, and often are. And I've also worked my ass off to redevelop myself and reinvent myself over and over again. I know what it is to be flexible, resilient, and to actually create change and make that leap from strategy to implementation so that actions can actually happen to make lives better for everyone.
Cool. So another hot topic in Edmonton pretty much at any given time is transit.
Oh, yes.
What do you think as a city council person you could do to or for transit for Edmonton?
I am furious. If I were to pick the top issue that I'm furious about right now in terms of what's happened with the city, it would be transit. So the transit redesign specifically has taken away proximate locations of transit for vulnerable people, the people who use it the most. It's ridiculous. I don't understand how that could have happened except for a lack of proactive collaboration and engagement with the communities that you're trying to service most. So in going around and speaking, for instance, to seniors organizations or independent seniors living associations and saying, here, this is the senior strategy that the city has. Were you consulted? Because they say that seniors were consulted. No. Not a single person was consulted, and that means overall, nobody consulted them either with respect to moving transit, because as part of that strategy, people who need it most need to get to healthcare, groceries, health activities. They can't push a walker through piles of snow. They trip over sidewalks. They can't physically make it from point A to point B. They need to have close transit. So I'm a bit passionate about this subject because to me, this was foreseeable. This could have been prevented, and it's cost a fortune to redesign this bus system. We're going to have to fix it. We're going to have to give routes back to people that they've taken away. People in the north, people who need to get around, who can't afford to drive, who don't want to aggravate the issue by using their automobiles in terms of climate, and they would prefer to take transit. That's part of our mobility strategy. It's part of our climate change strategy. It's part of our densification strategy. It's this is the integral linchpin, moving people around via transit. So it has to be vastly improved on, and that is number one on the top of my agenda pretty much.
So regarding that particular issue, if there was a bill that you could table today as a council person regarding a transit change, what would that include?
So that would include using information they already have. The city has hundreds and thousands of pieces of data, including demographics for neighborhoods. So you know exactly where people live and where the senior centers are and where those vulnerable populations live that need to access transit. put the transit stops back. Just put them back. So number one, use the information you have. You don't need to get a consultant, again, to tell you what you already know. Put the transit stops back so that for seniors in any event, because I have created a senior strategy that I'll be rolling out closely or soon, put them within a block so that they're accessible, and make sure, along with this transit strategy, that sidewalks are completely cleared around seniors' facilities so that they don't have to push through snow and walk on ice in order to be able to get to their transit. Look at reducing fares for those that are vulnerable so that you encourage ridership. I mean, again, right now our transit system isn't getting the ridership that it should. I mean, there's a bunch of factors playing into that with COVID and economic downturn, but also a growing number of houseless people. And in order to get those people moving around the city and decentralizing from where they are now, they're going to have effective transit to get them from point A to point B. So make it accessible. By doing so, you increase the ridership automatically.
Cool. And a related topic, scooters and city bikes and stuff.
I love that.
How do you feel about them?
I love scooters and city bikes. So, and I know it's a hot topic, but I already put out there, there's no way you should be fining people for using scooters on the sidewalk. If you've ever used a scooter to go down Walterdale Bridge Hill, especially at night, that's insanity. Absolute insanity. Our sidewalks, I mean, number one, scooters, generally speaking, have yet to hit anybody. I have yet to see an accident report of a scooter hurting anyone, aside from users who get drunk and use scooters. So that's always a risk, and that's a personal accountability. Wear a helmet, people, or don't drink and scooter. Yeah. Same with road bikes. Let's have mobile bike storage that you can move around. I know that's a little far advanced, but let's have better bike storage, better community bike storage. It's locked, it's got a cover on it so your stuff isn't getting rained on. It's got fob entry or whatever the case may be, so that you feel safe leaving your bike there. Biking and scootering and walking are some of the best ways to get around our city. I'm not saying go from Summerside and bike all the way down here. That's not feasible. It's a mix of things: automobile, bike, scooter, walk, whatever is important. But for sure in this O'Dayman core, those are great ways to get around.
Would you say there's any city around Canada or North America that has kind of a model system for how the scooters and bikes and stuff work?
I say there's a long way to go in order to get that, but Calgary does it better than we do.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Fair enough. So another topic that's come up a lot in the last 6 months in the news in this city has been Islamophobia.
Yes.
What do you think is the municipal government's responsibility?
So that's a great question. I actually just put out a video about this that I've sent specifically to Muslim communities and African communities, or hope that it's going to be redirected there. Anti-racism is everybody's responsibility. It's an accountability we all share equally, and it takes a community of us working together to stamp it out and eradicate it. And, you know, a number of the ways that we can do that are as follows. If there are organizations that have intolerance and racism systemically built in, then do things that create more awareness and training, that review those policies and processes that build that in, review it from an inclusive lens, from an intersectional lens, and make sure that they're rewritten. So take policing, which is a hot topic. Which is why I'm one of the people that founded this organization, the Coalition for Canadian Police Reform. That advocacy for a national professional police college where officers have that independent certification and take lived experience training throughout the course of their careers is going to be fundamental to encouraging a better proactive community policing society that isn't so much enforcement as it is supportive and inclusive, and being there when they're needed, in the right place for the right reason at the right time, as part of a support system. And so the second thing is review all of our other city bylaws and processes and make sure that they do have that intersectional lens, which is, that word that everybody's using now, but that you're looking at socioeconomic, at poverty, at what experiences specifically that Muslim women have, Black Muslim women walking around our city. And when you're doing that, please don't just look at it from a city perspective. That's not how you should be engaging. Don't go out and just talk to the researchers about what best practice is in Europe. Go and talk to the communities that are most affected. Go and speak with groups like Muslim Sisters. Go and speak with groups like Africa Center. Go and speak with groups like Bear Clan. Find out what their solutions are, because they are the ones, again, the community empowerment is important. Empower community to advise you properly on what the gaps are and help brainstorm solutions together, because that's the way that we systemically fix issues like racism. Another way, my personal kind of project is encourage the film and art industry to branch out and make our heroes and heroines people of color. Make them the forefront of the positive story. They are Edmonton. One of the things in O'Day Min that we have going for us is the new ward boundaries truly encapsulate the history and character and diversity of Edmonton. Full stop. We have the most diverse ward in all of Edmonton. And if that can be a tourist attraction, and if we can get communities to stand up and be proud that they are part of Edmonton's history, we've built Edmonton, then showcasing that in our arts and culture is extremely important moving forward.
And how do you think the municipal government would be able to enact that kind of thing?
The arts funding?
Oh, yeah.
So grants to encourage that kind of thing. Also opening up spaces like back alleys, building sides, fences that are just sitting there around holes like the one across from your house. Yeah. Those are beautiful places to have Indigenous art, Black art, African art, Asian art. Let's broaden it and give our people who live here a voice and make it local. I'm tired of going out of our province and out of our city for artistic works when we have an amazing talent pool here.
So I guess if you had a message to local creators and artists, it would be apply for grants?
Apply for grants and watch while we change the bylaws to make it easier for you to be able to engage with developers. And to also change policies and bylaws to encourage developers to engage with you. Because that's really important that we bring those two vastly separated communities together. We don't have to be separated. We can work together. And I know Oliver Community League has done an amazing job of that, and we can all follow suit. Engaging with our community leagues and using community members is extremely important.
Over the last couple weekends, Katrina and I have shot shows that have been going on at an art gallery in the O'Day Min ward over on Jasper Avenue.
Awesome.
And it was kind of a temporary space that the renter was just letting artists use it for free for a couple weeks. And yeah, I guess that would be like you were saying, developers just let artists use your spaces. And if you have empty spaces just sitting there that you're not renting to anyone, why not throw some art in it?
Please throw some art in it.
Or a show or something. Yeah.
I would love that. And on top of that, I really want to see developed a citywide, real-time, updatable app where you can mark your paths to joy, meaning every time you see a piece of artwork that you love, whether it's just something simple in somebody's yard or whether it's something in a gallery or some music that you're hearing, log onto the app, pop it up there, and it gets marked on a trajectory so that anyone arriving at the city or anyone within the city can follow those links and see things that are beautiful and creative throughout our city to highlight the talent that we have here.
Yeah, sort of like the Go Alberta thing, I think it's called, where they base road trip plans going from here to Lloydminster.
Right, except community driven, right? Grassroots driven with those experiences. Mm-hmm. I think we can capture all the paths for people work, like all different kinds of organizations, put it in one app, a one-stop shop to have available.
Cool. Thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. This has been fun.
Go vote.